Now,
on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:07 now, O'Connor and Company, Monday morning, jamming through a busy news cycle. Hold our hand. We'll take you through it. It's 7:05. Joe DeGenevieve will be here. 7:45. Trevor Matich on yesterday's near miss by the Commanders. 8:05. Mark Paoletta on the continued attacks on Clarence Thomas. I'm Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Julie.
Good morning.
Good morning. As we continue to remind you, we are in the middle of the Virginia election. There's no election day. It's election season. We're about a week into the 45-day voting cycle, and we want to remind you all the things that are at stake here. By the way, really proud to be down at Rappahannock County, Virginia this weekend, Friday night, speaking to the Republican Party there. They are fired up and ready to go and make sure that the Republicans hold the House and flip the Senate. That's the plan.
Yeah, I could tell you had a great time.
We did.
In a good mood.
I did.
After being down there.
Hard. After a weekend down there with the weather we had, it's hard not to be. Joining us right now is Sean Kennedy. He's the president and chairman for Virginians for Safe Communities. And even down in Rappahannock County, I mean, it's pretty safe down there. They don't have any traffic lights in the entire county, by the way, which I really appreciate. But even they were concerned about the widespread crime from the D.C. area spreading all the way through the Commonwealth. Sean, do you think that the crime issue is going to make a big difference in this election?
I think it is. I think there's a sea change of sorts that is happening. I mean, you can't watch local news here in the district and obviously going down, further south in Virginia without noticing that what's happening in D.C. isn't staying in D.C. It's moving south into both Virginia and out into Maryland, obviously. The retail theft rings, a lot of some of the violence, it's just becoming pervasive. And I think people are getting aware that obviously something has to change if we're not going to put up with this for much longer.
And if residents of Fairfax County want to make the most immediate difference with regard to the crime problem, it's to get rid of Steve Descano, the Commonwealth's attorney. Problem is, and this is why one of the reasons you're here, Sean, the problem is the Republicans didn't mount a challenge or put a candidate forth because they were hoping that the primary process would get rid of Steve Descano in the Democrats' primary. That didn't work out. So what's plan B now?
Well, we're working with a number of citizen activists, including about half dozen victims' families and victims themselves who are opposed, to run a write-in campaign to have Ed Nuttall on the ballot, and it's Ed Nuttall, Nuttall. And Ed has agreed that if he were elected via write-in, he would serve. And we have Pat Harity, who's the lone Republican supervisor here, endorsing it, and the Fairfax Republican Party has Ed Nuttall write-in on their sample ballot. And we have a number of former and current local officials, including former school board members, endorsing our campaign for the write-in. So we're feeling good that there's momentum here. Ed got 45% of the vote in a Democratic primary, and we know that there are a lot of Republicans who sat on the sidelines in that. And this is their opportunity to make their voice heard, and we'll be on the Republican sample ballot. We have the only Republican elected official in Fairfax County endorsing us, and we're going to come out on Tuesday at 11 a.m. at the courthouse and rally for Ed and explain to people why this writing campaign matters.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about this rally. Are there going to be victims of crime there talking about what it was like dealing with Descano's office?
Yes, we're going to have a few victims there that are part of this organizing effort, and there's a lot of people who are going to try to make it, so we'll get as many people out there as possible. But so many people, including one of the organizers named Scott Birdwell, whose family were victims of Steve Descano, they were re-victimized by them, are so outraged and so frustrated that the perpetrators of crimes against their family either got off entirely or got off lightly. And worse than all of that is that they weren't consulted, they weren't brought into the process. They were treated like pests or oftentimes the enemy by Steve Descano's office. And to be re-victimized like that, it's so disgusting from our point of view that it warrants us doing this right. And even if it seems like it's a long shot that's worth taking.
Yeah.
So what can people do if they want to join this process?
Well, if you want to join this process, you can join us at 11 a.m. On Tuesday at the Fairfax County Courthouse. We'll be there with Supervisor Parody and a number of victims, rallying and inviting, obviously, the media to be there to hear from them. And you can obviously join us at our website, which I'll give you here, is write-in-ednuddle.com, but I'll send you the direct link, so hopefully Larry and Julie can post it if people want to visit the website. But
yeah, actually, I'll give it to you real fast because it's we've been up longer than you have, Sean. It's ednuddle-writein.com is what you want to do.
Yeah.
So that's ednuddle with 2 T's and 2 L's, then a hyphen, and then writein.com. ednuddle-writein.com. That's how you get all the information that you need. You're right, it is a long shot. But, if you don't put effort into this sort of thing, even if it is a long shot, then what else are you going to put effort into? Because, we've seen exactly what's been going on in Fairfax County. The numbers don't lie, and it's just going to get worse. And Fairfax deserves better than what Steve Descano is giving them right now with the crime on the streets.
Absolutely. And anything is possible in politics. Anything's possible on the first Tuesday in November. And just remind everybody that there is a man who was largely colored orange, was a reality TV star, and a celebrity billionaire who became president of the United States. If 20 years ago you would have told me that was going to happen, I would have laughed you out of the room. So anything is possible in politics.
I don't know if it's more of a burnt umber, really, than an orange. But I take your point. I recognize that. Exactly. Don't write anything off, especially when you could write Ed Nuddle in. And let's remind everybody, he did get 45% of the vote in the primary against Steve Descano. The opposition of Steve Descano is strong and broad.
It is an opportunity for a do-over for Fairfax residents. Let's do this.
Yeah. And you'd think that the turnout and the attention might be much more intense on the general election date than it was in the primary. So let's try to get that done. All right, Sean, thank you. Listen, thank you for joining us and letting us know about this and the rally. And it'll be great that there are actual victims of crimes that are directly related to Steve Descano being the Commonwealth's attorney there, because this is a very human story.
Absolutely. And thank you, guys, for having us. And everybody, please come out if you can and join us at the website, and we'll be onward to victory here.
All right. Thank you, sir. That's Sean Kennedy, Virginians for Safe Communities, and you can follow them on social media as well at Virginians for Safe Communities. It's 6:50.
Cool content from your favorite WMAL shows. Download the new WMAL app today.
He goes up to the door. It's got signs on it. Fire door. Do not use. He takes the signs off the door, then turns and pulls the fire alarm. Yeah. Disrupting operations in the Cannon office building, delaying the vote on the continuing resolution.
Said emergency use only.
Only, yeah.
Right.
And by the way, every building in the Capitol complex is connected via tunnels. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to use the door. It's very easy. In fact, it's quicker.
Yeah.
To go through the tunnels to get to the House floor for a vote. That's the reason they spent the gajillions of dollars to make the tunnels.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I worked on Capitol Hill, way before 9/11, and then I continued to work on Capitol Hill after 9/11.
Yeah.
And the changes were remarkable. There used to be a lot more free flow into the Capitol, really less security. Since 9/11,
that's 23 years ago.
There have been signs up like this, and there's been much more sort of tension, right? And then after January 6th, you can imagine that ramped up even more.
Yeah.
The idea that this guy thinks he can just go in and out of like drawers that have big red signs on it,
and then lie about it.
And
Representative Jamal Bowman of New York.
I mean, not a bright guy, but he's not that dumb.
Yeah, we'll get into that. But the big story coming out of the vote apparently. Is Matt Gaetz and the civil war within the Republican ranks.
Yes.
We got our continuing resolution that keeps the government funded for 45 days. Hopefully we'll resolve this sooner than 43 and a half days from now. But way these things go, that's exactly, that'll be right before Christmas, of course, or the holidays.
Yeah.
And
no stress there.
So Matt Gaetz went on CNN Sunday morning and said he's done with Kevin McCarthy. He says that Kevin McCarthy is not follow through with his promises that he made to the Freedom Caucus and other members of the Republican caucus to get the gavel in January. You remember that fight.
Yes.
And
Speaker McCarthy made an agreement with House conservatives in January. And since then, he has been in brazen, repeated material breach of that agreement. This agreement that he made with Democrats to really blow past a lot of the spending guardrails we'd set up is a last straw. And then overnight, I learned that Kevin McCarthy had a secret deal with Democrats on Ukraine. So as he was baiting Republicans to vote for a continuing resolution without Ukraine money, saying that we were going to jam the Senate on Ukraine, he then turns around and makes a secret deal. Now, I know you and I probably have different views on U.S. involvement in Ukraine, but however you think about that question, it should be subject to open review, analysis, and not some backroom deal.
So I do motion to vacate tomorrow?
I do intend to file a motion to vacate against Speaker McCarthy this week. I think we need to rip off the Band-Aid. I think we need to move on with new leadership that can be trustworthy. Look, the one thing everybody has in common is that nobody trusts Kevin McCarthy.
Okay, newsflash here. McCarthy, as Speaker, sometimes makes backdoor deals with the Democrats. He is actually there to negotiate with the Democrats. I mean, I know that this is... You can question sort of the deal that was made, but it's not unusual for a speaker to talk to the other side and try to come to an agreement.
Yeah, listen, by definition, if given the fact that he's got a 4-seat majority, he's going to have to make deals with Democrats, especially if he wants something to get through the Senate. And I guess Kevin McCarthy and Republican leadership decided that if he didn't get something that Schumer would agree to and Biden would agree to, then the government shutdown would be blamed on Republicans and it would hurt everybody. He could be wrong about that. I think he is wrong about that, but that's the judgment that he made. There are certainly a good handful of Republicans who are angry about that. They want to put forth a bill that would drastically reduce spending. I think we need to drastically reduce spending, and let's have the showdown be over that.
Well, we would have had 8% reduction in spending if we had gone with McCarthy's deal. But now that got blown up.
That was
Yes, that was negotiated.
Right.
That was originally negotiated, but that got blown up. So now we don't have those reductions.
But
and
how
we
did
don't
that
have
get
any,
blown up?
and
That got blown up by...
The original deal that McCarthy had negotiated with the Democrats included reductions in spending.
Right. It got blown up by Republicans who didn't want to vote for
right.
it. That's what I'm trying to get you to
sorry.
say. It's all right.
Yes.
And so Mark Levin, who, listen, because here's the problem. You've got Republicans fighting against Republicans, and I do think that both sides are making reasonable
I agree.
points.
Yep.
So then the question is, okay, well then who are we supposed to believe here and what's going on? And I looked to sage advice and sage leadership. Mark Levin took to Twitter and said, as I explained over the last week, Matt Gaetz and the 4 other clowns, as he puts it, undermined the Freedom Caucus and all conservatives when they sabotaged an 8% cut in domestic spending and strong border control measures. They rant and they rave without a plan and without a real objective, and now we get this 45-day continuing resolution. They did this, and predictably, they desperately blame everyone else. And he said he'd discuss it at length on today's radio show, which he will. Listen, I wish that they could work this out behind closed doors. Whenever I point that out and I say, the Democrats never do this. Democrats always, they scream and they yell at each other, and then Nancy uses her iron fist and everybody falls in line. Why can't we do that?
Someone pulled a fire alarm and they all went into defend him mode, right? Yeah.
And the answer that I get is these, as Mark Levin puts it, these clowns, the people who are spearheading the opposition to Kevin McCarthy are more interested in their careers than they are in the Republican caucus. That's how it's relayed back to me.
Yeah, and there was an interesting moment where Gaetz was being interviewed by Jake Tapper, and there was some conversation about whether, this is a vendetta, more of a personal vendetta. Look, I think that Gaetz definitely
personal.
It does, and look, I agree with you. I think that those who objected to this deal that McCarthy had put together with the Democrats have some good points. There needs to be regular order. We do need to return to voting on each of these 12 appropriation bills. I agree. And I agree that maybe McCarthy has been in material breach of this deal that was made. But it's hard to negotiate when you have a 4-person majority. McCarthy's got an incredibly difficult job.
It is difficult. He wanted it.
Yeah.
He wanted it,
Yeah.
and he was willing to agree to all these things to get it.
Yeah.
And one of the things he agreed to was at any given time, one person can put together a motion to vacate.
Yep.
Put your motion to vacate together. The problem is, as we saw back in January, you don't have enough votes for an alternative. So you can vote to vacate, and then who do you got? Right? So, and by the way, as Matt Gaetz is now signaling, as you just heard, that he will put forth a motion to vacate the chair, which could very well go through. I don't know. We now have a handful of Republicans who are on Team McCarthy who are moving to expel Matt Gaetz over this, saying that he's disrupting the caucus and disrupting the process, but also over a pending announcement from the House Ethics Committee that has been going through a lot of charges against him. Yes, some involving sexual misconduct that he's already been cleared from. Well, the Justice Department decided not to pursue the charges, but also having to do with campaign funding and misappropriation of campaign funds and other aspects of that. This has been going on for over a year, this investigation. So now they're trying to expel Gaetz, which I don't agree with because the voters of his district should be able to have that decision. And then they're moving to vacate the chair. It's a mess, and it makes Republicans look like they don't have their act together.
Right.
Yeah. And again, I just want to point out, Democrats, boy, trust me, plenty of Democrats hated Nancy Pelosi, but boy, they fell in line.
They did.
They fell in line.
They always do.
It's 6:24.
Now on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
6:36 now as we continue our flight through the news cycle this Monday morning in your nation's capital. Thanks for tuning into O'Connor and Company. Coming up a little later in the program at 7:05, Joe DeGenova will be our guest. 7:45, Trevor Maddich on the Commanders putting a scare into those Eagles fans yesterday. And then at 8:05, Mark Paoletta on the continued attacks on Clarence Thomas. You see, all they're trying to... He and Jenny are just trying to RV across the country and enjoy their lives and
hang out with their friends.
Just going after.
Yeah, that's it.
That's Julie Gunlock.
Good morning.
I'm Larry O'Connor. Have you pulled a fire alarm today? Did you mistake it for how to open a door?
I did not.
Yeah.
I did not. No, I know
you
those
know
red things usually are
a session
emergency only.
With
yes,
the brain. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Jamal Bowman is an absolute lunatic, and we're going to remind you of that a little later as we tell the story of how he's an insurrectionist.
Easily confused.
Yeah.
He is.
He broke D.C. code. He also broke federal law.
Why he has not been arrested?
He should be in custody.
Yeah.
Joe Biden went on 60 Minutes. So did Merrick Garland. Boy, and 60 Minutes, they were more than happy to allow them to put up their defense against the impeachment. This was John Harwood. He was I love that 60 Minutes hired John Harwood.
Yeah.
This is a guy, you remember him from CNBC.
60 Minutes isn't what 60 Minutes used to be.
Not even close. They should hire Chris Wallace. Why not?
When I left the Senate, I was able to convince Strom Thurmond to vote for the Voting Rights Act. Strom Thurmond.
Now, Strom Thurmond died in 2003. Joe Biden left the Senate in 2009. So you would think that Mr. Harwood would lean forward and say, can you just clear up the timeline here for us?
But that's not
Mr.
Harwood's role.
No,
or his role.
Isn't.
His role is to listen.
No, and just nod and say,
yes.
oh, God,
yes.
thank God I'm in your presence.
Yes.
Also, last I checked, the Voting Rights Act passed in 1965. And it was opposed by Democrats. It was opposed by all the Democrats that when Joe Biden did join the summit in 1972 became best friends with.
By the way, when I saw this, that we were going to be talking about this, I thought, oh, are we flashing back to a couple months ago? Because this is the second time he's done this.
Yeah. Yeah, he keeps repeating this over and over again, and you'd think somebody at this point would actually have the fact check. Remember when they did that, when Leslie Stahl did that with Trump on 60 Minutes? Sir, there's no evidence of that. This is 60 Minutes when Trump was saying, well, Hunter Biden's got this laptop.
Yeah.
Sir,
behave.
There's no evidence of that. It's Russian disinformation. Mm-hmm. Has 60 Minutes issued a correction on that?
I don't think so. Or an apology. Let's try that,
like
Leslie.
Yeah. No, you're right. 60 Minutes is not what it used to be. He was then asked about the dangers of people speaking their mind and using the First Amendment.
Dangers.
Yeah, but the way it was asked had to do with Elon Musk and the Twitter application now known as X.
What about what Elon Musk has done to Twitter, lowering guardrails against misinformation? Does that contribute to it?
Yeah.
What Elon Musk has done
and
Twitter.
lowering guardrails against.
Yeah.
I mean, it is just
So then you pause there and say, okay, so which misinformation are you talking about? About the vaccine, all the things that we've learned to be true?
Russia collusion.
About Russian collusion, perhaps, that stuff? Well, the origins of the COVID virus. Is that the misinformation?
The laptop.
The Hunter Biden laptop. Boy, the Twitter had some really strong guardrails.
The dossier.
Against talking about the Hunter Biden laptop. That's the world John Harwood wants.
Yes, exactly.
John Harwood and 60 Minutes by extension.
He was very happy in that world.
And CBS News by extension, for that matter. They want a world where if 2 weeks before the election, you start talking about the evidence that shows the corruption in the Biden family, that you are censored, guardrails, censor you, delete your account, demonetize you, deplatform you, put a muzzle over your face, and tell you that you're actually operating in cahoots with Vladimir Putin and the Russian propagandists.
There you go.
That's the world CBS News wants by even asking that question.
They miss it so much.
And by the way, apparently it's the world that the President of the United States wants.
It does. Look, one of the things, as I said to you, when I thought I wasn't going to run, I was going to write a book about the changes taking place. And most of it's directed over the years for these fundamental changes in society by changing technology. Gutenberg printing and the printing press changed the way Europeans could talk to one another, all the way to today. Where do people get their news? They go on the internet. They go online. They go, and you have no notion whether it's true or not.
Half expecting him to say, "I convinced Gutenberg to."
I was there.
Jeez.
Gutenberg, movable typeface. Think about it. Just a thought. Just consider it. Might be a thing. They go out there. He said they. He's got a speech impediment. It's a stutter. He's had it since childhood.
Poor thing.
They go out there and they see information and they have no notion whether it's true or not. Which, by the way, is correct. You look at something on the internet, you see something on a website, you see something on social media, and you don't know if it's true or not. But here's the bottom line. I trust you to reach your own conclusion with your own brain and your own research. Joe Biden, the President of the United States, and John Harwood and CBS News, they don't trust you.
It's even more basic than that. You have the right to believe falsehoods.
Mm-hmm.
You have the right to think the earth is flat.
That's right.
I mean, I don't like that, but you have the right to believe whatever you want to believe. This is a very, very difficult concept.
Well, not if you live in Canada, by the way.
Oh, yes.
Yes, we've got an update on the authoritarian regime in Canada and their attempts to censor. And by the way, Joe Biden, John Harwood, CBS News, they look at Canada and say, oh, that's the right idea.
Oh, they love it.
The government control of information is really the secret to their success. And we'll get into that a little bit as well. Here from the 60 Minutes interview, they also interviewed Merrick Garland. Isn't it remarkable how Joe Biden and Merrick Garland roll out the public relations offensive here as they face an impeachment inquiry? And 60 Minutes is more than happy to lap it up and do their bidding.
Yep.
Yeah, and without any, here's Merrick Garland.
We do not have one rule for Republicans and another rule for Democrats. We don't have one rule for foes and another for friends. We don't have one rule for the powerful and another for the powerless, for the rich or for the poor, based on ethnicity. We have only one rule. And that one rule is that we follow the facts and the law, and we reach the decisions required by the Constitution, and we protect civil liberties.
Really? So there's a great way to demonstrate this. Arrest Jamal Bowman.
Yep.
Congressman Jamal Bowman disrupted a congressional proceeding, and he broke the law over pulling a false firearm.
He tried to stop
DC law.
a vote.
That's right. Or he did
delay.
Yeah, he delayed, and because of the fire alarm.
Yeah.
And by the way, you're in a congressional office building post 9/11.
You pull a fire
alarm.
Are you 13? Is this some prank?
People out.
It freaks people. Absolutely.
If there are not two rules, if everyone is treated the same, whether they're a Republican or a Democrat, arrest Jamal Bowman, put him in a prison cell, treat him like Bison Head Man or Lectern Man or
Granny who walked through a door held open by a Capitol Police officer.
The literally over 1,000 people who have been arrested.
Yeah.
From January 6th under the guise of disrupting an official proceeding in Congress. Whatever his excuse is, and he'll have his day in court, but arrest him. Because we know the facts are there. He has disrupted an official proceeding. Arrest him. He can give his defense. I'm sorry, I pulled the alarm because I'm a freaking moron.
I'm an idiot.
And I can't
Doesn't matter.
read.
You
And
pulled the alarm.
Make your defense.
Yep.
But arrest him right now. And Merrick Garland hasn't done that. I'm sorry, Attorney General Garland, what was that again?
We do not have one rule for Republicans and another rule for Democrats.
Prove it. Prove it. Perp walk.
I'm going to tell you how they're going to prove it.
Yeah.
Bob Menendez. This is the reason he's expendable. They don't care about Bob Menendez. They're gonna cite that every single time.
Look
at Bob Menendez.
If Republicans were in the minority and Nancy Pelosi was pushing through a continuing resolution hours before
Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert,
government shutdown, Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, Louis Gohmert when he was in the House, Steve King when he was in the House, they pull a fire alarm. They pull a fire alarm, and it's caught on camera pulling the fire alarm.
Instant jail. Straight to jail. Yes.
To jail. Perp walk out the Capitol. They would take them out of the Cannon office building through the tunnel that Congressman Bowman should have used to get to the floor, take them up to the Capitol, and then walk them down the steps with the Capitol in the background.
But that's not it. There would be press conferences where there would be tears about how terrified. AOC would be like, I heard that fire alarm go off, and I was triggered, and I thought I was going to be murdered.
That's right. I was hiding
totally
behind my toilet with that fire alarm.
All my stuff was crying. Yeah, it'd be a big show.
Joe DeGeneva is going to join us at 7:05, by the way, to discuss what the president said there and what Merrick Garland said and the mounting case against both of these gentlemen for impeachment, as well as the criminal charges that are clearly on the way for Hunter Biden. This is an embarrassment, and it's an outrage.
Yeah,
and the fact that Jamal Bowman continues to walk as a free man right now and not arrested, and that their only defense, although it is credible, is that he's a lunatic moron. It's like, oh, actually,
he really is incredibly stupid, and he's an activist, and pulling fire alarms is what Antifa does.
Yeah,
he is an activist. He is Antifa. He is a lunatic, and he's kind of dumb.
But other than that, he's one of our favorite a member in good standing in the Democrats Party. And by the way, one other thing that should be noted, unlike the Republicans who are now caught in this soap opera dynasty, Knots Landing, primetime
Gen X
soap opera that we see on a daily basis now, Democrats are rallying around Jamal Bowman, agreeing with him, protecting him, defending him.
Oh, and they're even criticizing people who are like, of course the sign was totally, the sign that says emergency door only is confusing. I mean, it
very
is.
Confused. So what does it mean? Emergency door, fire alarm, pull to sound alarm. What could it possibly mean?
And what I love is that he didn't even push through the door. He pulled the fire alarm, which is separate from the signs on the doors.
Yeah.
He pulled a fire alarm.
Yes, he did. And he walks a free man. But Merrick Garland said, we don't treat Republicans and Democrats differently.
Everything's
not
fine.
at all. We know.